Hello, children. Today we will discuss Chapter 3 of Political Science, Electoral Politics, Part 1. For today's discussion, we are going to discuss about 1987 Assembly elections in Haryana. Why do we need elections, or is there any other way we can elect our representatives? What makes an election democratic? Is political competition healthy or not? What are the types of elections we have in India? Electoral constituencies, reserved constituencies, and voters list. To begin with, assembly elections in Haryana. In 1982, the Congress party came to power and ruled Haryana till 1987. In the 1987 elections, things took a different turn. Opposition leader Chaudhry Devi Lal led a movement called Nyay Yudh and formed a new party called the Lok Dal. His party joined hands with other opposition parties to form a front against the Congress in the elections. He promises that if his party comes to power, he would waive off the loans of farmers and small businessmen. And this is how Devi Lal mobilizes support for his party. Elections are held and the results show a complete change. From a total of 90 seats, the Lok Dal and its allies win 76 seats in Haryana. They are invited to form the government. So, the sitting chief minister resigns. Devi Lal is invited to be the new chief minister, and as promised to the people, he issues a government order which waives off the outstanding loans of small farmers, agricultural laborers, and small businessmen. His party remains in power for 4 years, and in the 1991 elections, he fails to get the support of the people and loses to the Congress. So, from this turn of events, we conclude several things about electoral politics. People are unhappy with the ruling party. So, what do? They vote against it in the next elections. The party that wins the elections comes to power, forms the government, and this new government that is formed can bring about changes in its policies. Again, if the people are unhappy with these policies, they revert back to the old situation. That is what electoral politics is all about. The question is, can there be a democracy without elections? Yes, but now no longer. In the olden days, when democracy began, people sat together to take decisions. So all the people were involved in all the decisions that were taken. But in today's context, it is practically impossible because not all citizens may have the interest, the skill, or the time to participate in all decisions. So, what is the alternative? We have indirect democracy. So, we are no longer directly involved in all the decisions that are taken, but we select representatives who take decisions on behalf of us. So, what is this basis of selecting representatives? Are we selecting them on the basis of age or experience or is it education or knowledge? So, if it is age, experience, education, or knowledge, how much or how far are we looking into? Can the people ensure that these representatives will rule as per the wishes of the people? What will happen if the people are unhappy with the rule? Can they change their representatives? So, these are a few questions that come to our mind when we are talking about selecting representatives. Therefore, a mechanism is required by which people can choose their representatives at regular intervals and change them if they wish to do so. So, this mechanism is what we term as election. So, an election provides a voter, that is, the adult citizens, with certain choices. So, what are the choices that the voters make? They decide who will make laws for them, who will form the government, and who will be taking major decisions, which parties' policies will guide the government and the laws that are made. So, elections provide the voters with these choices. We have discussed in the previous chapters about the governments of various countries like China, Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, Estonia, Fiji, Zimbabwe, where elections were held regularly. But in spite of that, we still do not term these countries as true democracies, because merely holding elections are not enough. Elections have to be held in a democratic way. There are certain minimum conditions that need to be fulfilled when elections are held in a democratic country. So, what are the minimum conditions of a democratic election? The first is everyone should have one vote and every vote should have equal value, because democracy is based on the principle of political equality. Secondly, parties and candidates should be free to contest elections and they should offer some real choice to the voters. Elections have to be held at regular intervals so that people have a choice whether they want to continue with the same party or change their version. Candidates preferred by the people should get elected. That is, the people who get the maximum number of votes should come to power. Elections should be conducted in a free and fair manner where people can exercise their option without being under fear, without the use of force. And we are aware that in all democracies we have the secret ballot, and now we have electronic voting machines. So, for elections to be democratic, they have to fulfill certain conditions. The first being everyone should have one vote and every vote should have equal value. Parties and candidates should be free to contest elections, offering real choice to the voters. Regular elections to be held in an interval of few years. Elections should be conducted in a free and fair manner. So, it is understood that electoral competition means competition among political parties, among candidates, and this is what we call political competition. So, elections is all about political competitions, because here various political parties and candidates are contesting with each other to win the elections and hold power. So, is this competition healthy or not? Is it desirable in a democracy or not? What are the demerits of electoral competition? Electoral competition creates disunity, factionalism, and party politics in every locality. That means the people among themselves get divided into groups depending on their loyalty to a particular party or a candidate. And sometimes political parties and leaders start leveling allegations against one another in order to increase their own popularity. Dirty tricks are used to win elections. This is a very, very important challenge that elections face today. So, the power of money and muscle power is used in order to win elections, which is against democracy. Because of corruption, because of long term policy decisions not being taking place, electoral competition cannot be called healthy. As money is involved, as there is competition among parties to show their power, sometimes in the process, long term policies suffer. They are not formulated and implemented on time. So, because of this unhealthy competition, people who are efficient, people who are able and who can do a good job in the government do not want to enter the political arena. As we say, do not want to enter into dirty politics. But at the same time, it is well understood that this system of electoral competition serves the best interest of the people, especially in the long run. Political leaders are driven by a desire to advance their careers. Just like any other profession, they want to do well, they want to rise high in their careers, and the only way that they can attain their goal is to serve the people. As long as they serve the people, they remain in power. So that is their incentive. Considering this, what are the merits of electoral competition? It provides incentive to the political parties and leaders to perform their best. They know that when they raise popular issues, their popularity increases, and so does their chance of coming back to power in the next elections. In all likelihood, they will win the elections if they are taking care of the issues that the people have. But at the same time, if they fail to satisfy their voters, they will not win the elections again. It is just like a small shopkeeper trying to earn profit. So, as long as he keeps the customers happy, he will retain the customers. But if he is not able to meet the demands of the customers, they will look for other alternatives. So, the party's performance and how long they will remain in power is the people's verdict. So, their performance determines their remaining in power. So, political parties and leaders need to serve the people to remain in power. If they do not, if they put their personal interests before national interests and the interests of the people, they are bound to lose out in the electoral competition. When the parties try to mobilize support from the people, they make a lot of promises to the people, which they are supposed to fulfill when they come to power. So, just making promises and forgetting the promises once they come to power earns them a very bad reputation, and the voters will never vote for those candidates or parties again. It is therefore mandatory that political parties remember the promises they make to the people and fulfill them in order to retain the confidence of the people. Because we must remember, in a democracy, the power lies in the hands of the people. Even if the party or the candidate says that they have policies for the people, they have reforms for the people, they have a lot of things that they have planned for the betterment of the nation, only putting forth those plans do not work, because here the voter is very important, because his vote matters. Every individual vote matters. It is in his hands whether he is going to bring that candidate and party to power to implement those policies. Then we come to the system of elections in India. In India, we have general elections, that is elections to the Lok Sabha or Vidhan Sabha every 5 years. Elections are held in all constituencies at the same time, either on the same day or within a few days. Then we have mid-term elections, that is, if the central or a state government loses its majority before completing its term, mid-term elections are held. If an elected member resigns or dies before completing his or her term, elections are held only for that constituency in order to fill the vacancy that has been created. So, we have general elections, mid-term elections and by-elections. In this chapter, we are mainly going to discuss about general elections. Electoral constituencies. For the purpose of elections, the country, in case of Lok Sabha elections, and the state, in case of state assembly elections, is divided into different areas. The voters of a constituency elect one representative who becomes the member of the parliament in case of Lok Sabha election, and an MLA or member of the legislative assembly in case of Vidhan Sabha elections. Each constituency has a roughly equal population living within it, and this principle also applies for panchayat and municipal elections. Sometimes constituencies are counted as seats representing one seat in the parliament or state assemblies. In this map, we see how our country is divided into constituencies, and as we move ahead with the discussion, we will learn about how constituencies are reserved. In the system of reserved constituencies, certain constituencies are reserved for the scheduled castes and the scheduled tribe candidates. In an open electoral competition, certain weaker sections may not have a good chance to get elected, as they may lack the required resources, education and contacts to contest and win elections against other candidates who may be influential and resourceful. In this case, our democracy will become less representative. So, a special system of reserved constituencies was devised in order to give proper representation to the weaker sections of society. From the constituencies that are reserved for scheduled castes and scheduled tribes, only scheduled caste or scheduled tribes candidates can contest elections. In the Lok Sabha, we have 84 constituencies reserved for scheduled castes and 47 constituencies reserved for scheduled tribes. This reservation is in proportion to their share in the total population. So, this is their legitimate share. It is not taking away a share of any other social group. This system was later extended to the rural and urban local bodies where there are similar reservations for candidates of other backward classes as well as women. Then we come to voting. Who can and who cannot vote? We follow the principle of universal adult franchise. So, no one should be left out of the electoral process. No one should be denied the right to vote without a good reason. Of course, there are exceptions like people of unsound mind and criminals may not be allowed to vote under special circumstances. Everybody deserves an equal say in the decisions that affect them. Therefore, everybody needs to be given the right to vote. So, a list of eligible voters is prepared by the government much before the elections. This voters list or electoral roll, it has the names of all eligible voters. It is revised every 5 years to add the names of the new persons who have attained the voting age. People who have moved out of a place or are dead, their names are deleted from the voters list. When people go to cast their votes to the polling booth, they are required to carry their election photo identity card, which is issued to them by the Election Commission, or any other proof of identity like the ration card or their driving license. So, today we have discussed about the assembly elections in Haryana and how there was a turn of events. We discussed about the need for elections, what are the conditions that are required to term an election as a democratic election. We discussed about the merits and demerits of political competition, the system of elections in India, that is the general election, mid-term election and by-election. We discussed about electoral constituencies and the system of reserved constituencies that we have in India and the voters list. It is now time for a quick question-answer session. What was the movement led by Chaudhry Devi Lal in Haryana? Nyay Yudh. What did Devi Lal promise to the people? Devi Lal promised that if his party won the elections, his government would waive the loans of farmers and small businessmen. How many seats did the Lokdal and its allies win in the 1987 Haryana Assembly elections? The Lok Dal and its allies won 76 out of 90 seats. On what basis are constituencies created? Constituencies are created on the basis of population. What is the voters list? It is the list consisting of the names of all eligible voters. Based on today's discussion, the following questions are to be done as home assignment. Question number 1. Make a list of all the minimum conditions required for a democratic election. Question number 2. Discuss the merits of electoral competition. Question number 3. Define constituency. Question number 4. What is the importance of a voters list? That is all for today's discussion. We shall continue in the next class. Thank you.